And so we're starting our Empathy Cafe, discussing global warming, its concerns, and to everybody involved. Um, so we'll go around a little bit and make introductions, and tell us, who you are, and maybe a brief idea of how global warming is affecting you, but just as an introduction. So, would anybody like to start? Okay.
I'll go.
Okay. Thank you, Edwin.
Yeah, I'm Edwin Rutsch, founder of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. This is the center. It's those bookshelves there, all books on empathy. And yeah, I'm in El Cerrito, which is near Berkeley, California, which is the San Francisco Bay Area. And global warming, I don't know, I think we're doomed. I don't know how we're going to possibly stop it. Maybe we can ameliorate it, but it looks pretty bleak to me. Yeah.
Okay. Carolina?
Hello, everybody. My name is Karolina Kubiak. I'm calling from Gdańsk, north of Poland, Central Europe. My political leanings are kind of radical left, with Gandhian methods, Gandhian memes. And on our today's topic, well, I think we should talk not about global warming, but rather about climate crisis that causes us a lot of trouble, comparing similar to the war state around the world, around the earth. So yeah, I think it's real and it's very dangerous.
Okay. Sophia?
Yeah, my name is Sophia. I'm in Sweden, and my thoughts about global warming. I'm kind of split actually, because I didn't start thinking about this until maybe 2 years ago, when I moved to a house that was newly built, and I reacted on that they hadn't thought at all about the environment. And that made me think, because Sweden is supposed to be so, technological and yeah, it just made me think. So I don't know where I stand yet about it. That's why I'm here.
Okay. Joseph, can you hear us? All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead, Joseph. We're just doing introductions and your first take about climate change or global warming.
Oh, thanks. Well, I've been kind of. I absolutely have. There's no doubt in my mind that we're causing it. Other than that, I try to always reserve 1% of doubt, to never be too certain of anything in the universe. But yeah, I would just echo Edwin's thoughts and feelings. There's several people I know who are part of some online Facebook groups called the Near-Term Human Extinction Support Group. I think several years ago I wasn't so convinced that was really it. I mean, I thought it was a possibility, that we're doomed. But now I really am feeling, in that basically, unless there's just a major shift, and that's actually part of why I'm interested in doing this empathy circle work is the only way that I can see that this could change is if most of the world started living like the Amish, you know, just very, very simply. No cars, no airplanes, I mean, except for absolute emergencies. You know, growing all our own food locally.
Joseph, can I interrupt you? You
Great.
will have time for explaining your thoughts. Now we just kind of give brief view on our political or environmental outlook. Okay? Do you
Okay,
hear me?
Yeah,
Just briefly.
Okay, Joseph, do you have any last thoughts, just briefly? I can't
I
hear.
guess that I'm still sort of wrestling morally with whether I kind of give up and like really practice radical acceptance, or whether I still continue, you know, really working to change things. So that's kind of what I'm struggling with right
Great.
now.
Well, thanks. We're hoping that this is a forum for where, not necessarily there'll be a perfect answer, but you'll be able to flesh those things out and kind of hear yourself reflected and, kind of progress in your own thinking. So I'm Bill Filler. I'm a retired special education teacher. I'm in Northern California. There's no question in my mind that global, climate change is real, that we are, a big part of it and driving it. But I'm not so pessimistic. I feel that this is a tremendous opportunity for innovation and new ways of looking at problems and coming together and creating new industries. So I'm looking to create a strengthened dialogue and a real creative flowering to address global warming. That's what I hope to see. And that's it for me. Okay. So for our viewers here and for just, new people and getting used to the empathy circle, I'm going to ask Carolina to describe the process for us, and then we'll go into it. So Carolina?
Okay. So typical empathy circle is the best number of participants is about 3 to 5 participants. And there are 3 roles in this structured dialogue. There is a speaker, an active listener, and silent listeners. So the first person, everything goes on the kind of circle, and the first person selects who she or he wants to speak. You can choose whoever you want and for a lot of time, 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes longer, as we decide. Speaker speaks, express his or her thoughts, ideas, emotions, and the chosen person is active listener, and this person reflects back what speaker just said. And after 3 to 5 minutes, there is a turn. The active listener becomes a speaker and chooses another person who will reflect him or her on another turn. And everyone else just observe the whole process, how we hold the circle process, and how we stick to the steps of this empathic dialogue. And now few tips for speaker, for active listener, and for silent listeners. So when you are a speaker, try to pause as often as you can. That helps your active listener to reflect you back as well as it's possible. Give the chance to your active listener to reflect you back to your satisfaction. So pause and observe, check if the listener understands what you mean. If you feel that not exactly, you can make corrections. You may use different words, add something else to be better understood. When time is up, it's good to say, I feel heard, I feel fully heard, if you, and this way you kind of indicate that you are done with your turn, and now is turn of your listener to become a speaker and choose another person. When you are active listener, or we sometimes say reflector, your task is to express with your own words what you just heard from your speaker. Very important thing is to refrain from any judgment, any analyzing, diagnosing, advising, or even sympathizing with your speaker. Your task is to reflect back what you just heard. It's time of your speaker to be heard, not you. You will have your chance after this. So now it's time for a speaker to be heard, and try to do that as well, as good as you can. You can ask for pausing. It's good to ask for pausing if you feel kind of overwhelmed by what you hear from your speaker. So simply ask for pausing, or that will give you a chance to explain in your own words as well as you can. Silent listeners, as I said, you just observe the whole process. And if I may suggest, it's good to observe how our focus on listening changes from the situation when you are active listener and to the situation when you are just silent listener. For me, it's a very good lesson to observe myself, how my ability to hear what actually speaker says is changing depending on my role during the dialogue. So more or less, I think I said everything that is important. If you want to add anything, Bill?
Sure. Just very quickly, that was really great. But also, you can talk about if for some reason your mind takes a right turn or a left turn and you want to talk about something else, please feel free to talk about what's ever really active for you. Because there are two things that are going on.
Yeah.
One is the discussion, but the other is feeling heard. And we want you to feel heard.
Yeah.
And so if some adjacent thing comes up, you can talk about it. Also,
so
I'm sorry, I'm just going to suggest 5 minutes for this group, and then give a thumbs up, and then I have a timer here so I can time it, and then when
I can keep time.
Okay, great, thank you, Carolina. So Carolina will keep time, and then she'll give you a sign, and what that doesn't mean, it's not a hard stop. It means kind of wrap it up. So finish your last thought and last reflection, and then go until you feel heard. Okay.
So when time is up, I show this, and it means you can wrap up, you can end your thought, your idea, whatever you wanted to say. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you can choose whoever you want. It's good to give everybody a chance, but you can choose whoever you want. That's important.
Yeah, mutuality is, so at least in the first round, we try to get everybody heard, and everybody, has a chance to practice each of the roles. and then we can be a little bit more creative or something about that. So,
We
well,
have two more persons.
right,
We have two more people.
right. So, welcome, Jessica. Can you hear
Thank
us?
you. Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. So there are two things. There's your phone number, and then there's a box with your name. So
That's right.
Okay. So I don't know. I just came in. Are you familiar with the empathy circle process?
I'm getting familiar. I've just kind of been reading a lot of articles on your site, and I'm pretty new to it. But I thought I would participate today and start to get a better idea.
Well, great. First of all, welcome. And what I would suggest, we just kind of went through a description. Maybe you can give a short description of yourself and what your take is on global warming or climate change, briefly. And then I think what we'll do is that we'll go into the process. It's fairly simple. And then you can kind of see what it's like. And then, I'm sure you'll be able to join. Generally speaking, what we're trying to do is reflect what the speaker is saying without judgment, very basically. Okay, so you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, yeah. So,
Oops.
Can you hear me?
You're cutting in and out a little bit.
Okay. Let me try something.
Okay.
Okay, how about now?
I'm hearing you.
Okay, great. So I'm a mother of three. I'm an independent management consultant. I work in healthcare. Spent a lot of time working in palliative care space. And, I guess, I work on as a project manager and doing a lot of process improvement, coaching and consulting. And so in my work, in my daily life, I guess I've experienced over and over this empathy deficit, and I've just sort of diagnosed it as a root cause to a lot of problems. But which is why I'm coming to this circle, or coming to your site. As far as global warming, it concerns me. I'm very concerned about future generations, and just what the next 10 to 20 years might look like. Even it's pretty concerning. So I'm a conservative. And
great. Well,
is that what you wanted?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Did I cut you off? I'm sorry if I did.
No, not at all.
Okay, great. Well, welcome, and I hope you have enjoy yourself. Okay. So generally the facilitator will be the first listener, and then just to kind of role model and then we'll kind of move on. So is there anybody who would like to start speaking? Okay. No? All right. Well, I'm sorry, who? Oh, Sophia? Great. Okay, it's hard, you're not coming through too loud.
Oh,
That's better.
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes. Okay, so I'm listening.
I actually wanted to hear everybody else's thoughts first, but because I'm so uneducated on this. As I said, I'm not sure where I stand. On the one foot, I'm a big nature lover. I want to preserve the nature. I want to keep our environment as natural as possible. I am a poor person, so that automatically makes me a person that buys everything secondhand, and I never go buy plane. I don't have a car. I bicycle everywhere. I do my recycling. So I know that I'm living very environmentalistic. Can you say that?
Sure, you can say anything.
Yeah. So that's the one part. You can reflect on
Sure.
that.
So I hear your ambivalence. There's a lot you don't know, and so you're a little bit, nervous about expressing yourself around this area, and you wanted to learn more, but you took the initiative to just kind of jump in, and so you generally you're very environmentally conscious. You live an environmentally conscious life, and you are a big advocate of nature and enjoyment and preserving it. So you're coming at it with, well, what can we do? With kind of just looking at trying to learn. That's what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yes, exactly. And I've been thinking about that, and sort of like, if people didn't have so much money, then they wouldn't be able to do such harm to the world, because I'm, as a poor person, I can't afford to live my life as I can't afford going by airplane. I can't afford having a car. So I'm just thinking that being a sort of like average person makes you think more. What is the word? Environmentalistic. I know that is not the word.
You could say environmentally conscious. Right.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm just trying out thoughts, and then I have another thought that is, well, the Earth is gonna disappear eventually. The sun is gonna expand, and we are gonna die eventually. And the question that I'm asking myself, is it we that are doing the things that we're doing to the Earth, or is it just that the sun is expanding? And do you I don't know if yeah.
So okay. So first of all, you were talking about the fact that because you're poor, you have to be environmentally conscious, and you have to do these other things and you're feeling that if everybody were faced with the same, financial issues, they might think twice about wasting things and not recycling.
Yeah.
And then the next is in grappling with the issue of climate change is that you are wondering whether this is man-made or whether this is a natural phenomenon, which is foreshadowed by the expansion of the sun, which will eventually eat up the Earth. So is this a natural phenomena from the sun, or is this man-made?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And then the other concern that I have is people are talking so much about the climate changes. It's very a very okay. So I will do that in the next round. Thank you so
Okay, you
much.
should.
Yeah.
Okay, so you feel heard up to now, and then you'll say
Yeah,
that.
I feel heard up to now.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, let's move it around. Hey, Joseph, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, you ready to listen to me?
Sure. So I'm gonna be doing reflective, empathic listening for you.
Yes, just pretty much what I did.
Great.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. Okay. So I have, I'm not a scientist. Well, I am a scientist, a behavioral scientist, but I'm not certainly a climate change scientist, but I have studied it, and so it's clear that this is man-made, and that comes from studying the ice cores in Greenland, and then also it's hard for people to understand, and there has been a migration from the idea of global warming to catastrophic climate change. I'll stop there.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. So, so you have if I can, tell me if this is a good empathy reflection process, is I'm going to make an interpretation guess.
Sure.
I hear that you have a strong both professional and personal interest in both environmental science and human behavioral science.
Right.
Cool. And I'm also I'm getting the hint that you see these two as really tied together. Sorry, give me a second.
Take your time.
You feel really clear about the causes of it, having done research. And I apologize. I'm trying to remember what you said next.
That's fine. It takes a little while. Don't worry about it. And that's what it is. It's not about being perfect. It's about taking the time to hear each other, and that's fine. I appreciate. Yeah, you got the gist of what I was saying. And so what I would like to, what I have in my studies is that I've seen that it's like adding more energy to a system. It's like shaking something up much more, which can lead to all sorts of, so it's not simply like, oh, I'm going to have to, I won't need a sweater next year or something like that. For instance, the part of the reason why Sweden is as livable as it is because of the Gulf Stream. And if you look at the latitudes, you'll find like London is like in the same latitude like some northern Canada, yet has a much warmer climate. And that is dependent on a very cold, briny, thick, briny water that is pulling the Gulf Stream and creating that for thousands of years. If the glaciers in Greenland melt, that decreases the salinity. And then also because global warming, so the water gets fresher and warmer. And then that will not pull the Gulf Stream up there and could actually plunge Europe into a little ice age, which happened about 8,000 years ago when a glacial lake at the end of the last ice age, broke its dam and then flooded the North Atlantic with fresh water. That's a lot. Do the best you can. That's fine.
Sure, no worries.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
It's yeah. Well, so
you can paraphrase, and don't worry about
it. Yeah. I'm also I've been awake for about almost 24 hours. So that's also a factor at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so the first thing is that as you started to speak, I remembered what the last thing was that you'd said, which is that that there's been this shift in moving from people talking about sort of a slow, gradual global warming to now viewing it as a climate crisis. and I was picking up some that you see that as being a hard psychological adjustment for people to make. And then so as you're getting into this, you're talking about how it's not really as simple as things kind of uniformly getting warmer all over the earth, but that things happen in different ways, in different places, sometimes even in opposite ways, warmer in some spots, colder in other spots. But basically that the Earth is a very large, very complex system. And I'm noticing here that I have a little bit of my own bias jumping in because I'm already in large agreement with you. And so it's hard for me, I'm noticing, to just reflect based on what you've said and not based off my own perspective on the situation, even though I think that they're pretty aligned. So just that there's a lot of complex moving parts that can react in unpredictable ways. And I think that you want people to understand that, and to understand that it's important to bear in mind that this isn't, this isn't simple or straightforward when people go looking for patterns and trying to understand it, that they know that it's complicated.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Joseph. I really feel fully heard. That I'm not easy to reflect. I know that. It's a personal failing. So go ahead, Joseph. Why don't you pick somebody else?
Oh, okay. Okay, great. And so now is it my turn to talk and I'm picking someone to reflect me, or?
Absolutely. That's exactly what's going on.
Okay. Okay, great. I'm starting to get the hang of this. I'll try not to mess it up too much.
No, you're doing fine.
Okay. Let's see. Carolina?
Okay, I will try. I have to warn you that I don't speak English very well. I'm not native English speaker, so be merciful with me.
Thank you. My mother taught English as a second language for many years, so I'll do my best.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Trying to think of where to start. Well, as I said, I'm maybe I'll start by saying that a former romantic partner of mine once complained to me that I insisted on examining all 17 different sides of an issue. So I tend to have lots of, I try on lots of different ways of looking at things sometimes.
Would you pause and let me reflect?
Please.
So you start with your partner that complain that you have kind of very complicated view on this issue. You mentioned 17 different approaches or aspects of your outlook on the environment and climate change problems. Is it correct?
Mostly, except that this was a former partner. We're no longer together,
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and and
So your
also,
former partner. Hmm.
yeah, and also not just on the environment, but on any issue.
Okay. So you start with the fact that you have usually very complicated outlook on many issues. It's not simple for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's not simple for me. I mean, I don't know if it's simple for anybody, but I, well, as I said, it's part of what I'm struggling with right now is whether I guess I feel kind of caught between kind of just wanting to roll over and give up and just accept it all and say, you know, we're doomed. It's, you know, the time to start working on this was half a century ago, when scientists first started warning us that we needed to change this 50 years ago. And you know, and it's way too late, and you know, and we should be focusing on, or at least I should be focusing on, you know, tending to my own well-being, not in a selfish way, but just, you know, doing more yoga, focusing on personal development, learning how to get along with my friendships and relationships better, you know, just doing that inner work more.
Let me focus if I
Yeah.
can. So you feel kind of caught between two different things. I think you mentioned one of them, which is kind of feeling that we live in kind of dystopian, we are doomed. We live in the world that the future, our future is dystopian, and half a century scientists warned us about the situation and we didn't care, and now it's too late and you feel kind of it's over, and this feeling makes you kind of turning into just, you know, personal your personal development, or kind of focusing on just living, being conscious person, trying some yoga and kind of personal development because you feel you can't do more. Did you mention the other side of how you feel caught in between?
Very, very good. Thank you. That's perfect. No, I did not mention it.
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing wonderful. Okay, duly noted. Time. You know, and then the other side is, even if it's too late, and who knows, you know, and maybe it's not too late. Maybe it isn't. You know, that it's worth really throwing myself behind this work, and you know, trying to do what I can to contribute to the transformation.
So the other side of the situation you feel caught in is the thinking, the thought that maybe it's not too late yet, and you kind of thinking about, if I understand you correctly, you throw yourself into kind of fight maybe it's not too late. Maybe we can do something. If it's correct, is it correct?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what you mean?
you got it perfectly.
Okay. So do you feel heard?
Yeah, I wish I'd used my time a little better and said more, but
You will have another
Right.
run, I think. So there will be another occasion. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Next turn. Thank you. Well, so probably I will choose Jessica. Can you reflect me, Jessica? I don't hear
Yeah.
you, Jessica. Okay.
Yep, I sure
Thank
can.
you. Okay. Okay. Time. I start my time. Okay. So, well, I feel also like Joseph. I feel kind of caught in thinking about environmental situation. I'm usually focused on economical, social issue. I'm kind of political activist, more or less, and environment is just a part of what I'm interested in. But now it's changing. I think that environment, sustainability of our civilization, and preservation of our planet become the main issue in any policy. I will stop there.
Okay. So it sounds like you often find yourself taking a political position on many important issues. Environment has been a portion of that, but as time went on, you feel like it's kind of taken the stage and become a bigger piece of what you think and reflect about and want to help change as an activist. Is that fair?
Well, I think yes. I'm thinking about actually. I already involved in Extinction Rebellion in Poland in some groups here, but well, I think that environment become a main problem, economical problem and social problem. It's not just environmental. Now it's socio-economical issue.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we can't ignore that in any economic policy of any government. This is the main issue right now. That's what I meant.
I see. So it's a more multifaceted issue that's affecting us in many different ways. So maybe different people their ears may perk up because maybe they're more interested in economic effects, and now it is an economic issue, burning issue, and so maybe it's harder to ignore because it's just so multifaceted and so big that that's why you feel like it's an issue that deserves a lot of attention.
Well, for example, we have now in Poland the situation when our Prime Minister, there was a summit, European Union summit in Brussels last week, and our Prime Minister decided to block long-term goals. Long-term means to 2050. And our Prime Minister blocked long-term goals of climate neutrality, carbon neutrality. That means that our society and our economy produce kind of balance between producing and neutralizing carbon print is zero balanced. And our prime minister, it's a perspective of 30 years, and our prime minister blocked that long-term strategy. And there is a lot of fuss in our country about that, because it's actually killing people, really killing people, and our government do nothing about it.
Okay, so it sounds like you're really concerned that your prime minister is blocking progress and jeopardizing people's lives for a long time to come.
Yeah, by this policy that prevent the old strategy, kind of, coal mining, and the whole system of energy supply. It's kind of old school here, and well, we're producing a lot of CO2, and our government doesn't want to do anything about it. So yeah, it's kind of people killing policy. That's what they do. My time is up.
Okay, so
can you reflect me?
So you're concerned about killing policy, preventing progress, and jeopardizing people's lives. Seem to be the core issues. So the prime minister being, really the source, using his platform to block progress and take the country in the wrong direction. Is that fair?
Thank you. Thank you. I've heard. So now it's your turn. You can pick up somebody. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess, Sophia, you haven't reflected, right?
No, I can reflect.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I feel a little bit similar to what you described in terms of not being like super educated on this topic. I'm obviously broad awareness, broadly concerned, think about it a lot for obvious reasons. I think, how I would approach it is I come at it from the type of work that I do. So I work in the, in basically transformational change, and I work on large, complex health and social issues. And so as dire as any of the issues that I experience are, I think when I start to feel hopeless and concerned, I remind myself of, what I've experienced a few times, which is when there's that magnitude of a problem, when it's that huge, doing a few things right consistently, especially when you can do it at a systematic level, can really make a big dent. And that could be a start to a ripple effect to really, experiencing progress. Out there.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Carolina's. What does this mean?
I just wanted Jessica to pause to give you a chance.
Oh, okay. No, you don't have to worry about that. I can
okay.
Pause when I think it's because I got a little distracted there. Okay, so what I heard you say, Jessica, is you also feel that you're not that educated as you would want to be. And what I also heard you say was that you're trying to make sort of like little drips in the ocean, make your part. I didn't really understand how you did that in your work. So you can, did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, I think you got. Yeah, I think you got the gist. I think the relationship to work is just because I, not necessarily related to the environment, but I do work on some complex social health issues for vulnerable populations. We're trying to solve having better care and better quality of life for some of the most sickest, vulnerable patients, and it's really complicated. So some of the projects that I've worked on have been daunting, and like, how are we going to move the needle? But what I remind myself is if you can systematically make some changes that are that change the practice, for many, and you can apply those consistently, you can make a big dent in the right direction. And that's, and transformation is really a series of small changes that are sort of hardwired and locked in. So I guess when I think about environment, I think of, what we can do at the macro policy level, and then also what can be done, individually. And it's going to take both. It's going to be like, need to be grassroots, but also, absolutely systematic. What's that?
Can I reflect back now?
Sure.
Is it okay? Yeah. So what I heard you say was that you seem to have a work that involves you help people, and it sounded like you are trying to create a good environment for them to transform and heal. I don't really understand what your work is about, but what I'm also hearing you say is that you have noticed that this thing that you talked about, making change, macro, what was it that you said? I love that word. Sort of like contributing to the whole by doing little things. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, I guess addressing the problem at a systematic level, so you can think about, policy changes and systems and processes, and just sort of a network of all the factors that are contributing to the problem, and then at the micro level, just what individuals and families can do to change their behavior to work on this issue.
Yeah. So you're talking more about making changes on. I don't know exactly what systematic level means, but what I'm guessing that it means is that trying to make change in the chain of different kind of departments. And okay, so now I forgot. It's too complex word for me to.
That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. You did good. Should we stop there? Caroline, are you on
maybe
mute?
you should
Sure.
explain, Jessica. Maybe you should explain that.
Should explain the system issues. Okay, so here's an example. We have the choice to donate organs in the event that something horrible happens to us, and we have viable organs that somebody else can use. At some point, they decided to ask every individual who gets a driver's license, would you like to be an organ donor? So they systematically built that in so that, and the percentage of people that elected to do that drastically went up. Just by nudging people, just giving them that little box to check when, because pretty much most people get a driver's license, so then you kind of cover the bulk of the population, and meanwhile you just increase the organs that are available to people that need them. So it's kind of a small thing, but it had big impact. So that's what I mean by a systematic change.
Okay. Shall I reflect back, or shall we?
Yeah, try reflect.
Reflect, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that just by making that change into asking people who have a driver's license if they would donate an organ, that increased the amount of other people surviving because of one needing an organ. Okay, so I understand what you meant now with all the other things that you said.
Great. Thank you. I felt heard.
Yeah, okay. Edwin.
Yep, listening.
I just feel so nervous every time I have to focus on someone, and I just feel the tension of not, really wanting to understand that person. And so I just wanted to just say that.
Mm-hmm. So you just want to name that you feel some anxiety and some tension when you have to listen to someone and do the reflection. You just wanted to be able to express that and have it be heard.
Yeah. I had so many thoughts now by listening to everybody. What I wanted to say before was that I've been thinking that most of us are traumatized in some way or another. And we need to sort of fix ourselves. Because what I have noticed within me is that when I started my healing journey was that nobody had to tell me, you have to think about the environment. The environment is important. It just, when I started to heal, there was more space to think about those things. So that is what I feel is urgent. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about that.
Okay, so I was hearing there was a lot of ideas, a lot of things were coming up by what you were, in response to what people were saying here. But the thing you had wanted to talk about was trauma, that you feel that everyone, there's a lot of trauma in people. And from your experience, when you started addressing your trauma and healing from your trauma, it sort of opened up space to think about things like the environment and kind of be more caring. So, and you find that people aren't talking about that aspect of, that healing of your own trauma as a way of, addressing a lot of these problems.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't mean in a kind of like mumbo jumbo spiritual way, because I'm not healed yet. I still have a lot of traumas, but I think that what people can do better is that you can't force an opinion. You have to make these changes. You have to do this. You have to think about the planet. If that person is so full of themselves, and I don't mean narcissistic, they are just too traumatized
Mm-hmm.
about those things. Yeah, and that's why I like these circles, because I feel that there is room to talk about this from that perspective also.
Mm-hmm. So you feel when people have this trauma, just telling them, oh, you should do this, is kind of like adds to the trauma. And
Yeah.
so that's not very helpful. And you appreciate these circles because the way you deal with trauma is you are able to share it and be able to be heard about it. And that sort of is a way of resolving trauma in a sort of a productive way.
Yeah, and also, you know, building this culture of empathy, because I don't think if people haven't been taught empathy from the beginning, they are not going to be able to be empathic towards the world, the nature either, because that is a part of being empathic, not only towards other people, but also towards nature. And I know that within myself, because I didn't think about this when I was too traumatized. I had too many issues to even consider those kinds of issues.
Mm-hmm. So building a culture of empathy, you know, being able to think about nature and the environment, that when you're traumatized, you've got your own stresses and anxieties, you don't have space to think about this other. So the way to really think about the environment is to, you know, sort of have that healing around the trauma, and to, you know, maybe have empathy for yourself, not in a narcissistic way, but in a healing, in a positive healing way.
Yes, thank you so much, Edwin. I feel heard.
Okay, great, thanks. Bill, would you?
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, that I really appreciate what Sophia is saying about the empathy sort of being the healing agent. I see that as well, you know, for that just the importance for global, you know, dealing with these issues is the empathy. And she had a really, you know, just to really appreciate the way she kind of described it too, you know, about we need empathy for ourselves, and sort of to take our action out of that empathy is a really a positive way of doing it.
So what I'm hearing is that you appreciated the perspective that Sophia brought in talking about empathy, and also considering the macro, which is on societal level, but also the individual, where you have to give you know, self-empathy, and it's almost like you have to heal yourself as you heal the world at the same time.
Empathically, I think it's that empathy, that the healing, it's a type of healing, the empathic healing, that's important. And the one thing I was, you know, I know it's like Extinction Rebellion. They say, well, we're all going to die. It's the end of the world. I don't think that that's true. That, you know, having been to places like India and, you know, a lot of, you know, developing countries where it's just extremely poor, you know, people can live with very little. I mean, if it's total societal collapse, you know, refugees, famine, pollution, war, I think there'll be some people that will survive. So it's not like the total destruction, end of humanity. It's just, you know, the quality of life may not be different, but I don't think that humanity will go extinct.
Okay, so one, you want to emphasize that the type of communication that we're talking about is a real empathic communication, and that creates the healing, not just any communication. And then you talked about that there are many people who feel that we're about to go extinct and that things are really dire. You don't feel that that'll happen, but you feel that human beings are adaptable. And so therefore, you've seen a lot of societies in your travels around the world where people do cope with less and less, you know, functional societies, let's say.
Yeah, you can do with very little, you know. I mean, as a human being, it's not pretty, but people can do with very little. And I am concerned about the societal problems, you know, of refugees, famine, pollution, war, the health issues. I think those are, sort of a lot of the negative consequences that could come from global warming.
So you feel that you are concerned about the issues, the larger issues, and that you feel that global warming can exacerbate all these challenges that we face today.
And I don't understand. I mean, you had mentioned about climate change and global warming as two terms. I also am not clear on that, because it seems to me global warming is pretty clear. You look at the graph and the chart is going up. So you can say, hey, the globe is warming and there's going to be consequences of that, global sea rise, etc. I don't know why that everybody's talking about climate change instead, because there's always climate change. The climate is always shifting and changing, and so I don't quite get that, what the issue is, why people are using the word climate change more versus global warming.
So one of the things that you that you're kind of contemplating is why the word global warming is not used, and why people are shifting to climate change.
Yeah. And and I'm coming back to that sense of sustainability. I really appreciate what Sophia is saying about the relationships. It's going to be empathic relationships. Supporting each other empathically. I see that as the healing, sort of the way forward, and that's what we're trying to bring into Extinction Rebellion, is to bring in these empathy, empathic way of being. Even trying to get, like, politicians. I could imagine a demand being that the politicians have empathy circles with protesters or with each other. So, that we can be a bit more assertive in, moving this into, this empathic listening and, as a foundational practice into the political world.
So you see that what we're doing here in the empathic listening is foundational and is a core practice towards creating the kind of dialogue and community that we need to address the issues. And you also are feeling that it's time that people, raise their voices and demand empathy rather than just, passively wait for it to happen.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, I'll mix it up a little bit. Jessica, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So a couple of things. So I really, I also appreciate what Sophia brought to the table, and I think that other people did too, and also that Edward, amplified, in that we have to also show empathy to ourselves. Many times when we talk about change, there's almost this self-flagellation that goes on, where we have to somehow pay for the sins of our fathers by, cutting ourselves off from things. And I don't think that's true. I'll stop there.
Okay. So you were reflecting on what Sophia presented and sort of agreeing that it's important that we respond to these issues in a healthy way that's not assuming guilt for something that was done before our time.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And to talk about climate change as far as global, I'll come out as that I'm a firm believer in climate change and on the scientific side and what's happening. I'm not so pessimistic. And one of the reasons, I have no problem if you say global warming. I mean, I understand what you're talking about. But part of the information campaign to help people understand it is to change it, because people who deny climate, for instance, will come into Congress with a snowball, and there's been these tremendous, like the polar vortex we had in our country, and these tremendous winter storms, which they say, see, it's really cold, it's not hot. But what they don't understand about the science is that because we've added more heat, that increases the carrying capacity of the atmosphere for water. So you have these tremendous snowstorms in the winter. And so therefore, there'll be a snowstorm like that, and then a congressman will come in with a snowball and say, see, it's all a fake. So it's not all a fake, and that what it's doing, it's like sort of like think of yourself on a tightrope, and then the wind comes and is pushing you this way and that more quickly. And I'll stop there.
Okay. So it sounds like you're very careful with the messaging because the messaging is so often misunderstood. Maybe it's counterintuitive to the general public, and therefore people who are in leadership positions can exacerbate the issue by drawing false conclusions and sort of projecting them through the blowhorn so that people, it negates the correct message that we want to get out there.
Thank you. And then I'm a special ed teacher. Whenever I had a kid, they had failed in 3 or 4 things. They were dealing with impossible problems that I couldn't necessarily solve. My feeling is that, it feels good to be in the struggle. I'm going to get on because I'm, a guy that says, it's always 4th and 15. Sorry, a football analogy there for these kids. And any little progress you made, and this is where I appreciate what you brought, Jessica, as far as like you just consistently, you show up every day, you support the kids, you teach them, and things happen. It's not perfect, but you're moving in the right direction. And so I don't really, we may go extinct. These things may happen, but God damn it, I'm going to be doing the right thing on the right side of history. And if that's the way I go down, that's the way I go down.
Nice. Okay, so it sounds like in your experience as a special education teacher, you've been faced with some pretty challenging, complex problems with the kids you're dealing with that they're suffering and they're problems that are huge, bigger than you. And at the same time, you've learned that it's worth the fight and that the small things and showing up every day and probably applying your expertise, being deliberate about how you educate these children and support them, it pays off, and you have moments where you see the brightness and the progress and the impact that you're making on their lives.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. I feel heard.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Edwin.
Okay, listening.
Okay, I'm not really sure where to go with this now.
So you're really thinking of where to go with this and not quite sure.
Right. I'm trying to think of something I can contribute on this topic.
So just trying to see what can you contribute to the topic, and just not quite sure yet.
Okay, I was a bit inspired by something Sophia said when she was talking about trauma. I think that's a really interesting sort of aspect of what makes people open to change. I can relate to that on a personal level and then also from observation. So I just think there's something so powerful about when people go through something big and, the healing that happens after, and then the openness that they're able to experience and put out there in the world, to want to do better, want to work on issues such as this, want to be better people, more whole, and I guess just that clarity. And I guess I often think about, people sort of in the rat race of life, like how do you create some kind of intervention? How do you manufacture some kind of intervention that can create that kind of, well, maybe not that level of openness, but some kind of window so that people can get perspective? I don't know. I almost like an empathy immersion experience. Like, how do you manifest that?
Okay, so people are just going along in the rat race. They're moving along in their typical way, and when there's that needs something big sort of needs to happen for people to kind of change, and then once there's this big event, maybe a big trauma, a big something, then people are like willing to, they're out of their regular patterns. They're willing to make some kind of a changes, and you're just like wondering, how do you have sort of like an empathy intervention to, have people make this shift?
Correct.
Was there more?
No, not really. I'll stop there.
Okay, you feel fully heard, then thanks. I'll speak to Joseph. You're muted. There you go. Okay, so yeah, this is an interesting idea about the you need some kind of a big trauma, not if it's a trauma, a big event to make it.
Yeah.
Shift.
Sorry about that. I'm having.
Are you able to reflect, or I didn't hear that? Is there something going on? Sound like maybe I'll shift to Carolina then. Are you available, Joseph? Not hearing you.
I'm having really bad connection issues right now, unfortunately.
Okay. Do you want to try or just wait for?
Shit.
Sounds like we might wait for a bit. Maybe I'll speak to Carolina then, and hopefully your connection gets.
I think it's better if you shift to someone else.
Okay. Carolina?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay. Yeah. How do you make this shift? That people sometimes have to hit rock bottom if they're, alcoholic or something. It's just this, you hit rock bottom, or drug addiction, or, a lot of these issues, you hit sort of rock bottom and then you're willing to make a change. So I think that's a bit kind of an issue.
So you're talking about this making shift, and what I'm hearing, you think that to do that, people kind of need to rock bottom, to hit the bottom and jump from there. That's how you see that, like in any addiction, for example, alcoholism or other form of addiction, you can kind of fall down completely to be able to take off.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, there's sort of like, extended family members who like dealt with alcoholism. I mean, just, things just got really bad. They went into rehab, and then it's like their life really turned around, so they went on a different trajectory in their life, and they actually become, so it's just thinking about that aspect.
So you recalling the story of a member of your family who was addicted to alcohol, and it just looked like that as you describe it, that it has to be kind of a rock bottom, and then you go different direction. Is it correct?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's one aspect. The other is I've been looking at Extinction Rebellion, their methodology, and they're saying that nobody will pay attention to you unless you go out in mass and you do it for a long time and you get arrested and are willing to arrest. Like these demonstrations, we want climate change. You walk from point A to point B and everybody goes home, everybody just says, "Oh, well, that was nice," and nothing happens. They kind of talk about their theory is you need drama, and the drama is people staying in one place for weeks, occupying sort of the roads or the bridges like they did in London, creating drama so people can't ignore you. So you have to do something, social action, where people can't ignore you.
So what I'm hearing you saying that you're thinking about Extinction Rebellion actions, especially in UK, where they were blocking bridges and kind of disrupting kind of daily routine of other people and the government and the other institution. And you think that this is kind of situation when you disrupting others' life and pull their attention to the problem, to the topic of our today talk, and the whole problem of climate crisis.
It's
what
sort
you
of
mean.
How you make change. Yeah, you got to have some kind of a crisis, some kind of drama. Otherwise people just go.
That's what you said.
Normally, it's like, they just ignore this or that, and
I missed that. Can you reflect me? Can you let me reflect that?
Yeah, okay.
So I missed that part. So you think that it can't be just regular protest? It has to be kind of drama created in this protest. For example, Extinction Rebellion have kind of arrest strategy. And only when people feel this drama, dramatic protests that last for many days in one place and have kind of dramatic development, only then people will really engage in fighting for a change, for the shift.
Yeah. And it kind of wakes people up. And I think Trump is like a master of it. I mean, he's just doing all these traumas, like one after another. I mean, the left is just like in total, chaos and upset. And, it's almost like a puppet. He just kind of plays. And so it seems like he's using that strategy too
So what I'm hearing you saying that, well, in different way, but Trump is kind of master of creating a drama and kind of dramatic situation, and he's doing obviously in different way than, for example, Extinction Rebellion that you mentioned before. But that's what have to be done, kind of theatrical, the theater, theatrical, thank you, theatrical effect, kind of dramatic.
I feel very heard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would like to try again with Joseph, give you a chance. How do you hear us, Joseph? Hello? Joseph, do you hear us? It was interesting what you were saying, so it would be nice to hear from you. Joseph? It looks like he can't. Do you hear him? Maybe it's my problem. Okay. Well, too bad. Well, I will turn who didn't speak many times. Maybe I choose Sophia. Sophia,
Yep, I'm listening.
would you reflect me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I have to start my time. Okay. Well, I'm listening. I'm trying, even when I'm silent listener, I'm trying to be active listener, even I'm not reflecting. I'm trying to kind of be more focused on what you're saying, but it's not easy. I kind of lose discipline when I'm just silent listener. Okay, I stop there.
Yeah, even though you are just a silent listener, you're trying to be an active listener, and you find that to be hard sometimes. Is that correct?
Yeah. Thanks. And I was thinking, but in some moments of our today's talk, I was able to listen carefully. For example, I think that this greenhouse effect or kind of problem with global warming doesn't mean exactly the hot weather. So global warming doesn't mean the weather will be more warm. That was interesting point made by Bill. The complexity of the, for example, ocean currents and all this stuff. I stopped there.
Yeah, so you're just noticing the complexity of the term global warming, that it doesn't have to mean that the air is getting hotter, but it's also about this thing that Bill talked about the Gulf Stream. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
That's what we call it in Sweden. But yeah.
Well, there are a few ocean currents that may change their direction and the kind of circulation, which might be catastrophic for climate and weather in many places on Earth. So it's kind of general problem, not only with Gulf Stream. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's affecting all the oceans. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm afraid I don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but kind of rough connection. I don't know. Okay.
You can turn off your video.
I would like to.
Mhm.
Okay. But do you hear me kind of fluently?
Yes, now I hear you, but your video froze recently, so I don't know if it's better if you turn it off.
Okay. Okay. I would like to say that what I'm not sure if I understood correctly Edwin, but he said something like he preferred to focus on kind of economic crisis, economic or war refugees and that sort of thing. But I think that actually all the refugee crisis is also a part of climate crisis. That's what happened in Syria war. it starts with a huge dry period when the rivers dry out, and the big masses of people were simply internally displaced people. They went from villages where they lived to cities. They couldn't find job, and that's how the Arab Spring in Syria began. And then we got the war, and then we have a huge refugee crisis. It's actually climate and economic crisis. Yeah, I stopped there.
Yes, so what I'm hearing you say is that different kinds of issues, the economical issues and environmental issues, it's like a domino effect, and they sort of work together. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's intertwined kind of situation. When environment intertwines with economic issue, and we can't split them. They are very tidy, intertwined.
Yeah. So you're saying that they are basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill.
Listening.
Yeah, there's just been so many things, and now I'm seeing Jessica's son in the background. That people had said. Yeah, there was actually one thing that you said about, oh no, now I forgot about it. About trauma, that people, you said that something about people who deny climate issues coming into the political arena, and some sort of fear of them getting the power. And my thoughts about that is that I truly believe that people who deny these kinds of issues have trauma, actually. That's what I was trying to say before, that they are so full. They have so many things going on with themselves that there is no room for them to think about. You know, they are denying their own selves, so they are denying other issues also. That is what I believe. Yeah, you can reflect that.
Okay, so first, you're trying to process a whole bunch of information. There are a whole bunch of ideas and stuff. So there's a kind of like the gears are turning, as we would say. And then you were referring to a comment that I made about a congressman who came in with a snowball saying that global warming is fake. And that the issue for you, as you see it, is that that person is so full of their own issues and stuff that they can't see clearly. They can't go out. And you feel that that's the root of the problem, in the sense that to try to help people heal and, you know, and so that they can deal with their own personal issues. And once that is done in a functional way, they can then address the larger issues.
Exactly. And also what I see, that I don't know if this is correctly, because I'm telling other people what issues they have, but what I think and what I believe is that they are in so much denial of their own needs and feelings. So people who typically deny these kinds of big issues, they are in denial of themselves also. Yeah, you can reflect back.
Sure. So, and again, you're coming back to the point where these people are so self-involved, maybe because of trauma and other things like that, that they can't really focus on these other issues. And for you, the issue is to really focus on how do you help these people heal in order to then, help them to make them emotionally prepared for dealing with larger issues.
Exactly. And I watched a very interesting talk with Edwin and another woman who works with empathy with kids. And that is where I think we should begin. If we don't teach kids empathy, we are going to have issues. And I don't mean climate issues. We're going to have issues in all parts of the political, arena. If people lack the skill, I don't think we can make changes by actively wanting to change people, to change their behavior. I think we have to start with the kids so that they learn this kind of skill, so that they can bring that out to the world later. That is how I see it.
Okay. So for you, the main issue is not necessarily arguing with and trying to change the minds of people who are not emotionally prepared, excuse me, for one reason or another to hear it, but that we should focus on children and teach them empathy and give them experiences of empathy. So therefore we have healthier children with which to then have these more constructive dialogues.
Yes. Can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
Is that okay? And also, I just want to mention that I'm not all against sort of like forcing things on people, because we actually made women's right to vote was actually enforced by violence. So I'm not at all against that, but I'm not sure if that is where we are at right now in the world.
Okay. So you're saying that you're not against dramatic, actions to change people's minds. And the example you brought was women's vote that was actually, physically enforced. But you don't know whether we're at that stage with this issue.
Yes. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. All right. Well, we're at about 11:46. We're about to harvest. Do we have a time for one more round? Or should we go to our...
I think we have one more.
Okay, good.
Can we give chance to Jessica to be heard? Jessica, do you want to talk maybe?
Yeah.
Because we are facilitators, so maybe Jessica wants to be heard.
Well, I think I spoke twice, so I think I'm caught up with you guys, right?
That's fine, but if you have something more you'd like to say on this and any other topic, you'd be welcome to. If you feel put upon, then no need, no pressure here, whichever way. You just want to give you the opportunity.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I guess, I would just, I'm still curious and interested. Well, I really want to get your guys' thoughts on some of my questions, so I guess that's not part of this process. I guess I don't really have anything at this point, but thank you for the invitation.
Sure. Well, just to quickly reflect, you're interested in hearing more from us. We're sort of at the end, but there'll be other cafes around this, so that's legitimate. The process is, not exactly a flow of conversation, but there is room, I believe, in the process for you to ask that question, and for as we get our turns, then to to basically respond. So
React to that.
yes, that's not going. That's not against the rules. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm very curious on your perspectives about an intervention or like some kind of trigger to help people start to think differently or just have an opening. And I'm trying to think back. So Sophia, you had a clarification about what you meant when you brought up the trauma. And it was a little bit different than I think what I originally heard. Yeah, so I guess my basic question that I'm interested in is, what would it take to get people to even have broader awareness that this is something they need, that you can build, and that I guess as a predecessor to creating a desire, like how do you build that awareness, and is there some ways to intervene? Like, I guess if an example of somebody that does have a trauma, is that the moment to help facilitate some deeper reflection and I guess sort of make the most out of that negative experience and like come out of it with some deeper meaning and perspective that can, sort of benefit their lives and those who they touch going forward.
Okay. I'll kind of, try to reflect. So you're really wondering about what are the specific foundational practices that might help people to come to grips with this issue. And then I would suggest, since you brought that to the whole group, that maybe we take about 30 seconds and just kind of throw ideas out. Would that be, is that addressing the crux of your question?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody want to start there? Edwin?
Yeah, what I was kind of hearing is like, how do you have personal or socially people wanting to be more empathic or create a culture of empathy, and what can we do? It's kind of what we're doing here. I just keep plodding along, trying to educate people, try to model it. I'm interested in the XR because they're doing public events. So I'm imagining we do a public demonstration occupation somewhere, and one of the demands is we have the demand that the politicians take part in empathy circles. So we have the empathy modeled. Like, I've talked to Governor, Gavin Newsom. I just talked to him. I've talked to him a couple of times around this. And so I'm kind of working on him. I've talked to our Congressman, Mark DeSaulnier, and, Barbara Lee, too. So, let's get these politicians to do empathy circles and model it, which will then demonstrate it for the community if we have our leaders. But we may have to apply, pressure to get them to take part. So that's, so there's a lot of different strategies, and all those books, there's all those books, behind me. Those are all books on empathy. So there's all these books coming out, people talking about it. So you kind of have to build a movement, and it's kind of step by step. Yeah. As well as learning the skills, and in a personal way, like do family empathy circles, with your family, with your friends. And this is part of that step here. So yeah, that's long-winded, but.
Thank you.
And Sophia, since you basically brought the issue up, would you like to respond?
Yeah, sure. What I'm talking about, I just want to make a clarification. When I'm talking about trauma, I basically mean all kinds of childhood stuff. I'm not talking about war trauma or accident trauma. I'm talking about childhood stuff. And what I believe is that most of us have some sort of more or less of that kind of trauma. And what I truly believe is that people start to heal the moment that they feel heard, because that is my experience. When I started with NVC, I got my first experience of really feeling understood, and I had never had that experience before. And I'm just getting goosebumps talking about it, because I was 31 years old, and I've never had the experience of feeling heard or understood. So I'm going on with Edwin that we just need to like push this out and make people feel heard. That is what I believe.
Okay. Carolina?
Well, to make world more empathic, or us more empathic, I believe that I need to start with myself, and to make the society, my background, people around me more empathic. First step is to be empathic to them, and I can do that only when I believe in their goodwill. I might disagree with them, but I have to believe that they don't mean to harm or to do bad things. I have to believe in their goodwill. I may be disappointed sometimes, but still I need kind of professionally naive approach to people, and always believe that even they think they want to harm somebody, there is a goodwill in them. And I have to believe in it. Yeah, that's the approach, the first step to empathic listening and spreading empathy.
And very briefly, I would just say that I believe this is the foundational practice. That's why I'm doing this. And what it does is it breaks down barriers and labels to what we tend to see as the other. And that once, and I've gone to contentious places, but once, no matter what they are or whatever their opinion is, people feel heard without judgment. And then we cease to become labels, and we start to become two human beings. And from that standpoint, constructive dialogue can ensue. Okay. Well,